making out is hard to do left me feeling things I wasn't expecting, and I've kind of changed my mind about some things. This is the 7th episode of the 2nd season of Good Advice. It's directed by Michael Lembeck, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. And it was a really enjoyable episode, and I think quite unpredictable. It starts off with Paige having a going away party, which I was kind of confused and upset about because I don't want Teri Garr to leave. But then, well, first of all, Susan's very drunk after having one drink. She sings. It's an absolute delight. I love when Shelley Long sings. And then in the next scene, Paige comes back. So Teri Garr hasn't left the show, thank goodness. It turns out she was going to have this new business venture selling sweaters, but it turns out they were 90% cocaine or something like that. She'd been duped, and thankfully she wasn't in trouble, so that's fine. And then she reveals to Susan that she slept with Jack last night after the party. And it turns out, I love how it escalated, because first of all, Susan finds out that Artie knows, and then Artie walked in on them. And then Artie walked in on them while they were having sex on his chiropractic table. I loved how that escalated. Very, very well done. And Susan seems to be the only person who has a big deal with this. We know that Susan is very much somebody who prefers to have sex with somebody if it's meaningful. She doesn't want to just date people for the sake of it. And, well, Paige is a lot more carefree in her attitudes, and she seems fine with it. Jack, we also know, is a lot more carefree in his attitudes. So Jack and Paige are absolutely fine, but Susan is not, and she keeps telling them, how can it not mean anything? How can you sleep together if there's no connection there? You didn't even kiss. She can't get her head around that. And, well, after it seems like everything is fine, they've walked away from the situation, Susan walks in on them in the copy room. And I have to say, it seemed quite logical when Paige explained it. She explained that they realised maybe Susan was right, and they decided to kiss to see if there were any feelings there, and it turns out there weren't. And Susan is frantically brushing her fringe. Shelley Long always gives a perfect performance, but that bit in particular I thought was rather delightful. And she accidentally launches her hairbrush at Paige's head, and Susan confesses something that I maybe hadn't expected. I maybe predicted it, but didn't expect it, and I will explain what I mean by this. Susan confesses that the real reason it seems to be bothering her is that she actually had her own fantasies that maybe one day she and Jack would be together, she was going to take him out on a lake, on a boat, and it's something she thought a lot about. And the reason that I find this is both predictable but unexpected is because I did expect eventually. I realised by saying that I expected it, but also it's unexpected, kind of sounds a little bit ridiculous. But I did think that one day Susan and Jack would be together. But I thought it would be a sudden spur of the moment, kind of like Paige and Jack thing, where they'd just be in the moment, they'd sleep together without thinking about it beforehand, and then maybe a relationship would begin as they realise they have feelings for each other. But I didn't expect Susan to admit that actually this is something she's thought a lot about and is kind of hoping to happen. So part of me expects it eventually, but not in this way. And the bit where I've changed my mind is that, I think I've mentioned this before, but I expected it to happen, but I've said frequently, or at least thought frequently, that I don't want it to happen because it's so predictable. It is like we're building up to Susan and Jack being together, and it's so obvious that I don't want it to happen. But with Susan confessing that this is something she really wants and really thinks about, I've kind of, as soon as she said that, I kind of just changed my mind and thought, well, now I really want it to happen. Which I guess shows how much I care about Susan and want her to be happy. No surprise there, because it's Shelley Long. But it's kind of instantly changed my attitudes about that, and none of this has played out the way that I was expecting. And the ending is so frustrating, because Paige tells her, go and tell Jack, or you're going to be like our aunt who sits alone in a corner. And Susan realises there's probably some truth to this. I'll go and talk to him. She knocks on the door. Clearly something's bothering Jack because he's talking excessively, really quickly, not giving Susan a chance to say anything, which I think is quite interesting. I really hope it doesn't come out that Jack actually has feelings for Paige. I really, really hope that that's not the case, but I don't think it will be. And unfortunately, all Susan can do is ask if he likes the lake. And then she walks away. And she says that at least for now, that's all she wanted to ask him. So I don't know. I don't know what to expect going forward, but instantly my opinions on what I want have changed. I'm excited. I'm hopeful. I'm kind of frustrated because it's not how I wanted this episode to end. So for now, I can say that Making Out is Hard to Do is a brilliant episode, really unpredictable, definitely changed what I want for the rest of this season. And honestly, I can't wait to find out what's going to happen next.